Okay, next speaker is my dear colleague of almost 40 years, Victor Friedman, a retired linguist of the Balkans from the University of Chicago, and he's made a big effort. His talk will be Judaismo in Macedonia, North Macedonia. Okay.
Actually, Yitzhak, I took you at your word. The title you assigned me was Judaismo in Macedonia.
Okay.
Macedonia, at the beginning of the 20th century, was all a part of Ottoman Turkey. It consisted of 3 vilayets, actually 2.5, but never mind. The vilayet of Selanik, Salonika, the vilayet of Manastir, which is now Bitola, and the vilayet that was called at some points Kosova, but whose capital was Iskip, Skopje. It was this set of Ottoman territories that was divided among 3.5, if you will, Balkan nation states. Greece got its dream territory of what is today its northern boundary, even though nobody living north of Kozani, except in a few of the cities, spoke Greek. Never mind. Bulgaria got 10% because they lost the Second Balkan War, but Nevrokop and Gorna Jumaya, nowadays Gotsedelchev and Blagoevgrad, had Jewish, and we can assume safely, Judaismo-speaking populations.
That's Bulgaria for people who don't understand.
Oh, sorry.
They don't know. Most people don't know where you're talking about. Okay. Good.
Oh, the northern part of Greece, everybody's heard of Greece, right? We've had lots of Greek in this presentation so far. In fact, I wanted to read you a little statement. Our colleague, Dr. Hagoel, I can't. Oh, wait a minute.
Yitzhak, send me the presentations.
I did.
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
Go check your Gmail.
Yeah. It looks like I closed it by mistake. Well, never mind. The Greek Constitution begins with, in the name of the Father and the name of the indivisible Trinity and Jesus Christ. It's the second article of the Greek Constitution is all about not translating the New Testament into any language but that approved by the Greek Orthodox Church, which is given precedence as the normal religion of Greece, although religious minorities are allowed, but they're still Greeks. So the 1996 volume of Elliniki Dialektologia had the community, the bilingual communities of Greece. God forbid there should be anybody who's monolingual in Greece, except with Greek, of course. So they had Pomakika, which is Muslim Bulgarian. They had Hispano-Hebraica, which is Judaismo. They had Vahika. They had Arvanitika, and they had Musulmanika. Musulmanikatis Thrakis. That's Muslimish of Thrace. They wouldn't dare say Turkish, right? Turkish sounds like an ethnic minority, and chas v'chalila, that the Greeks should have any ethnic minorities. They don't. I have a wonderful overhead from Maxim magazine, where there are these ladies in bikinis, and there's a Miss Greece and a Miss Singapore and a Miss this and a Miss that, and the Miss Greece. Everyone has a hometown fact. So a hometown fact of Singapore is, they won the Guinness Book of World Records for stuffing cars full of people or something. And the Greek hometown fact is there are no ethnic minorities in Greece. This is Maxim magazine. This is a kind of, my colleague whose son was at the time a kind of person who read that kind of magazine. That's how I saw it. Anyway, Greece, yes. So there were Jews in Greece. Salonika was basically a Jewish city, 55,000 Jews, according to Kantroff, in 1900.
There were many more. There were about 80,000.
That's right, because the other 31,000 were Dinmeh. They were
No.
Muslims.
80,000 Sephardic Jews and another 15,000 Dunmei.
Okay, abigazint. That's fine. I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sorry. You know, if Kantroff says 50,000, 55,000, it's got to be bigger anyway, right? So, you know, so there were Jews all over the Macedonian territory that was subdivided after the Balkan Wars of 1913. There were 3 little chunks that went to Albania, and they were all villages, and there were no Jews, at least not as we can tell. Very few Jews living in villages in Macedonia, almost everybody in the cities. And, you know, I could do like what other people have done and just start reading. Solun, Ber, Enice Vardar, that's Janica now. Strumica, Doiran, Langada, Ceres, Gorna Jumaya, that's in Bulgaria. Nevrokop, that's in Bulgaria. Kostur, that's Greek Kastoria. Drama in Greece. Kavala in Greece. Skopje, capital of what's now North Macedonia. Kumanovo, Stip, also in North Macedonia, Bitola in North Macedonia, Lerin, which the Greeks call Florina, Kastoria, I think I mentioned Kostur. But what's interesting here, something that you don't know, is that there were Jews in Ohrid. Ohrid is on the westernmost corner of North Macedonia. And it was a very famous seat of Slavic learning. And a word or two about, you know, how did I get into this sort of thing? I actually started out as a Russian major in college. And then I went to Russia and I saw what a wretched place it was. And thank God my grandparents left. And so I naturally went into South Slavic. So I was sort of like, hang on, I'm sorry, I'm being a little tired. It's been a long day. Hang on. Is it? Oh, no. Here. So it was. No.
What are you thinking about?
The one who was singing, was that Shoshana who was singing with all the different instruments?
No, Judith Cohen.
Judith, like Judith, I was a folk dancer. And so I went into South Slavic, and then I had a chance to go to what was then the Socialist Republic of Macedonia within the federal SFRY, the Socialist Federated Republic of Yugoslavia, and learn Macedonian. And there were all these other languages. There's Albanian, and there was Armenian, and Romani, and so on. And I thought, wow, this place is really fun and different and cool. And, you know, and unlike Greece, where a colleague of mine did his field work in the Macedonian speaking village of what is Greek Nestorion, or Macedonian Nestram, in the beginning of his book, which describes a dialect, he thanks the Greek police for teaching him to always make a backup copy of his tapes. Because in fact, they arrested him, confiscated his tapes, and destroyed them. But he had a backup copy, so he got to publish the book anyway. But you know, Macedonia, I was just studying Macedonian, so it wasn't really a problem. There are problems, of course, in every country, as we know, the US especially these days, but never mind. So I studied Macedonian and then became interested in the other languages of Macedonian, especially Albanian, Armenian, Romani. And I only came to Judaismo rather late because, and here's a point, and it's a point worth making. There was a Danish linguist named Christian Sandfeldt who made his name with a doctoral dissertation called, in Danish, Balkanphilologien, which nobody read because it was in Danish in 1926, but it was translated into French in 1930. And La Linguistique Balkanique became the classic of Balkan linguistics. And in that book, he brought together a century's worth of research on the classic Balkan languages, Balkan Slavic, that's Bulgarian, Macedonian, the southeasternmost dialects of the former Serbo-Croatian, Balkan Romance, that's Romanian, Aromanian, Magleno-Romanian, Albanian, and Greek. In footnote 2, he explicitly excludes Romani and Judezmo, saying they're not part of the Balkan Linguistic League because their languages have nothing to do with the convergences that the Balkans show. And so one of the things that I've spent some time doing is showing that, well, in Romani, there's no question that there are convergences. It's an easy business. In Judezmo, as it is spoken in the Balkans, there are constructions. Words are easy to talk about, you know, Chanukalik, right, from menorah, Chanukia in modern parlance. But the exclusion of Judezmo from Balkan linguistics, that is, the exclusion of the Balkan dialects of Judezmo, is something that I have been, in a sense, campaigning against, if you will. It isn't to say that Judezmo looks just like every other Balkan language, it doesn't. But it has enough features in it, for example, in order to say, you know, is it okay? You don't say se puede, you simply say puede or puede, depending on the dialect, which is a direct calque of the Balkan Slavic. So, and I have many, there's some, Marie-Christine Varol has a wonderful example from Istanbul, where they use a pluperfect instead of a simple past, because they are calquing the Turkish evidential in mish. And it's the same kind of process that actually occurs in Quechua Spanish, the Spanish of Peru, spoken by native speakers of Quechua. I mean, anyway, so I have lots and lots of technical examples, but I'm not going to bore you because it's late and I'm tired and you're tired and so on. So I'm going to tell you a couple more stories. Marko Tsepenkov in the 19th century was a merchant in Prilep in Turkish. And he collected folk tales. And his works come to 10 volumes, or 4 if the paper's bigger and print is smaller, but 5. There's one volume though called Anecdotes. Anecdotes are jokes, and ethnic jokes are really interesting because they give you an insight into the stories that were circulating in the middle of the 19th century in what is today North Macedonia. And so I went through all 200 or 300 of them, looking for any in which a character speaking in what today we call Macedonian switched into a different language. And indeed, the Albanians speak Albanian, the Greeks speak Greek, the Gypsies speak Romani, the Aromanians speak Vlach, but the Jews speak Turkish. They do not speak Judezmo in the stories that were circulating in the Prilep marketplace in the middle of the 19th century, which shows you the way, and David Bulnes tells a story the way, there would be people in the marketplace who would learn, especially the Vlachs, right? Aromanian is a Romance language like Spanish. They're separated, but there's plenty of room for figuring things out between Aromanian, and the Aromanians also were merchants like successful Jews. And so what the Jews in that area would do is switch into the higher register and use Hebrew. instead of Judesmo, if there was somebody in the shop that could understand or overhear. So Judesmo in Macedonia. Well, I'll tell a couple more stories. There was Ambassador Orion mentioned Esther Ovadia, whose nom de guerre was Mara. She's honored in Bitola because she was martyred. But in fact, there were 3 girls that ran away to join the partisans. Esther was one, Jamila Kolonomos was the second, and Rosa Kamchi was the third. And Jamila also escaped and fought and produced, among other things, this book, Sephardsky Oglasi, Sephardic Echoes or Voices, I think, exactly like my colleague's presentation just now. Rosa Kamchi got caught. But she was caught after the deportation. The deportation was March 12th or so, roughly, when they gathered people up in Monopol. And the Bulgarians, and it was the Bulgarians who did all the Germans' dirty work for them and were paid for it. Rosa, the Bulgarians, didn't want to pay the money they would have to pay to ship her to Treblinka. The Germans were going to charge them. So instead, they threw her in jail, and she survived the war that way. The other survivors, there was one Jew left in Bitola in 2009, but he has passed on now. There are Jews still in Prizren in Kosovo. When I last talked with them, and this is already more than 10 years ago, there were 48 Jews in Prizren. They spoke Turkish at home, just like every city resident in Prizren, which is in Kosovo, but in the southwest. And you know, there are stories still to be told. There are languages still to be studied. The Turkish of Prizren in and of itself is a very interesting dialect, and I haven't had the time to look at whether the Jewish Turkish is different from the Muslim or Christian Turkish, but it would be worth doing. Prizren was the one city where the Jews were left in peace during the civil wars and the NATO war and so on. The Jews in Pristina were mostly from Serbia and went to Belgrade. There's still a Jewish cemetery in Pristina. It is in disrepair, but it's on a hill and nobody goes there to do anything. So it's not that it's been desecrated. Unlike what happened in Salonika, where the Greeks built the University of Thessaloniki on top of the Jewish cemetery. But so it goes. What else? Oh, you know, I could go on and on about grammatical features and linguistic stuff, but I think
why don't you explain one thing? What are the Bulgarian influences in Macedonian, in the language, okay, as opposed to local Macedonian
yeah, the Macedonian issue. So the Greeks objected to the use of the name Macedonia, and then they agreed on North Macedonia, fine. In the Prespa agreement, it states that the language is called Macedonian, and the identity of the people is Macedonian / citizen of Macedonia, because Macedonian could be ethnic or civil. Whereas in Greece, there is no ethnic identity allowed. So it's very different. Anyway, Bulgarian and Macedonian and Serbian form part of a large linguistic continuum. It's hard for people who don't, I mean, all right, Spanish, Portuguese, Galician, Aragonese, Catalan, Occitan, all the various Romance languages that are contiguous, Italian. I mean, I've been with a colleague of mine who speaks Spanish and not Italian, and we went to an Italian restaurant in Italy, and she just spoke Spanish, he spoke Italian, and they had a long, they understood each other. We ordered, fine. So Macedonian, Bulgarian, and Serbian, or Bulgarian, Macedonian, Serbian, it's that kind of continuum. What happened in the latter half of the 19th century was, but during the first half of the 19th century, there was a big fight between the Bulgarians and the Greeks. The Bulgarians wanted to have their own language in church, and the Greeks wanted to Hellenize everybody. And by the way, Hellene was a crime in the Byzantine Empire. They were Romans. They were Romioi, Romios. Romaika was the word for Greek until the late 18th, early 19th century.
A Hellene would be a pagan then.
That's right.
The objection.
That's right. And after Constantine the Terrible, or the Great, depending on your point of view, that was a crime. Being pagan was a crime. So being a Hellene was a crime. And it wasn't until the 18th and 19th centuries with the Germans and the English and so on, that Hellene suddenly became an ideal and Hellenization became a goal. Although the Greeks, including the Romios, destroyed Slavic books whenever they got the chance, even during the Byzantine period. When they conquered the first Bulgarian Empire, they destroyed all the Bulgarian, what would be called, the Bulgarians call Bulgarian, we call them Church Slavonic books. And that's why there aren't any from that period, except the ones that survived in Moscow and outside of Byzantium. John Fine, the early medieval Balkans, has the references and information. Vladimir Morshin wrote the article, it's in Russian, so if you read Russian, fine. Early 19th century, the fight is between the Greeks and the Bulgarians over who's going to control ecclesiastical territory, revenues, language, and so on. And the Greeks are being very Hellenizing. I mean, Cosmas the Aetolian, who ran around Epirus and Chameria in southern Albania, telling everybody that Aromanian is the language of the devil and only Greek should be spoken. It's just like the language oaths that the Greeks made people sign after World War II and after the Civil War, where Macedonian speakers were forced to swear that they would not speak this language, where they threw mothers in jail, and never mind, I could go on, but I won't. I mean, I was attacked. I was personally assaulted by the Golden Dawn at the promotion of the first Macedonian Greek dictionary.
I saw it on television.
Yeah, I know it's on television.
It's
not on television. Yeah, no, I was there. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I got back to Macedonia. So I come to TV, come to TV, come to TV. And I had to go to dinner, But yeah, so the real contestation in the early 19th century was between Greek and Bulgarian. Bulgarian didn't even have a real meaning at that time. It was just any Slavic dialect whatsoever. And there were Macedonian speakers who wanted Bulgarian to be based on what today we would call Macedonian dialects. And they published articles in Istanbul and Constantinople on the principles of literary Bulgarian. And it was basically everything that characterizes Macedonian today. What happened was the center of power shifted to northeastern Bulgaria for various reasons. Standard Bulgarian is based on northeastern Bulgarian dialects. Standard Macedonian is based on west central Macedonian dialects. The point is, the whole area is a continuum, but there is there's, how shall I put this? Bulgarian is influenced by Russian. They have participles that Bulgarian doesn't have. Many things. and their Cyrillic is based on Russian. Macedonian is influenced by Serbian, and its Cyrillic is the Cyrillic that Vuk Karadžić came up with, which is linguistically sound. It's basically one letter per phoneme. So if you want to write ya, you write J-A. And if you want to write ya in Bulgarian, you've got 2 ways. If you want to write yo, you've got 4 ways. It's totally different in terms of the writing systems. So the current Bulgarian nonsense, my personal feeling is that it's Russian inspired, but I could be mistaken there. But it's certainly helping the Russians to keep Macedonia out of the EU, because as Dr. Yanev said, the name change was to get into NATO, but it was also to get into the EU. That was supposed to be part of the deal. And
yes, it was some kind of a bargain, like we are losing something, but we are preserving the borders and
right, preserve the borders, preserve the word Macedonia in the name,
yes.
preserve the name Macedonian for the language. Okay, it says
Yes.
in Prespa that Macedonian is a Slavic language. That's true. That's
Yes,
good.
yes,
Right?
yes.
It's much better than those stupid Vumero. You know what I'm talking.
Yes,
You know what I'm talking about.
But
Anyway,
Somebody
why do the Bulgarian,
see it.
why does
Yeah.
Macedonia look toward Bulgaria? You would think they would look toward
They don't.
Serbian.
They
Well,
don't.
no, but that's their motivation. And Bulgaria
what? Wait.
Bulgaria
what are you
never
saying?
misses an opportunity to inspire Macedonia.
No. Bulgaria never loses an opportunity to try to reclaim Macedonia,
Okay.
whose Jews had exported and killed. Now, why did, the Jews of what is today North Macedonia, those were Bulgarians that rounded them up. Those were Bulgarians that sent them to Germany.
But the whole IMRO phenomenon. We want to be a part of a larger Bulgaria.
Oh, well, that's,
Okay.
Oh,
if there-
if you're talking about Vumero today, no. If
No,
you're
no,
talking about
the beginning of
Vumero
the
in the
20th
past,
century.
there were two.
he means about the
there were-
organization, not political party.
There were 2 Vumeros.
Right.
There were
Yes.
2 Vumeros. There was a
You have left
centralist.
wing and right wing. Right wing were collaborations with Sofia, and left wing had ethnic Macedonian identity.
Macedonia and Macedoncite. They didn't want
Yes,
to be part of this.
Macedonia to Macedonians.
And it's that left wing that Krste Misirkov in 1903 produced a book in Macedonian dialect that was so close to standard Macedonian today that as a young student, I could read it. I could not have read something in Bulgarian as easily
Yes.
as I read that book.
За македонските работи about Macedonian
Yeah.
matters.
Exactly. So, so what Bulgaria is doing right now is being Russia's pawn, as far as I'm concerned. The other part is the right-wing assholes who would kill Jews anyway. I've had it. I'm just over it. Judesmo in Bulgaria exists still. A colleague of mine, Iskra Dobreva, has written a doctoral dissertation on Judesmo written in Cyrillic letters from the archives in Sofia and also the Vomero Museum, I think. So, but they don't want to hear anything about Balkan features. Everything has to be pure. No.
Cindy, did you have a question for Victor? Okay.
If you're talking to me, no, I did not have a
No.
question. I just said
okay,
thumbs
she
up. It
okay.
was a thumbs up, not a question.
Thank
Okay.
you. I didn't see, but I appreciate. So I guess that's if there are any other questions, feel free. It's already kind of late, and I just had cancer surgery the day before yesterday, so I'm kind of tired.
So, okay, I will just comment. Thank you for the presentation, and hope to see you in the future in Skopje, and I will send to your email my works on Macedonian, on English. We will see.
I was
Like,
going to ask you, you know,
Yeah,
на македонски, изпрати ми ги.
So my doctor thesis, it's published
Yes.
on Macedonian. It is about the Jewish community from 1700 until 1912.
Great.
Also some articles and
Много сакам. Yeah, I'd love to see it. Thank you.
благодарам многу и ќе се видиме во Скопје.
Ќе се видиме во Скопје.
So Victor, as usual, you've been enlightening, okay, informative, controversial, and you know, you add some spice, and now we understand a tiny bit more the Balkan fiasco, conflict, et cetera, et cetera. It goes into the linguistic realm, not just in terms of nationalistic, and you explained how Judeo-Spanish is discriminated in the linguistic politics in the Balkans.